Dr. Renee Marinelli. I'm the Director of Advising with MedSchoolCoach.
And I'm Dr. Mehta, an interventional radiologist and the founder of MedSchoolCoach. Together, we've probably read thousands upon thousands of personal statements.
At least.
And today, we want to tell you about the art of the personal statement, telling your unique story.
The personal statement is just such an important part of the application. It's really your chance to demonstrate who you are as a person and to really set yourself apart from other applicants.
There's no doubt about it that this is one of the parts of the application that applicants stress about, and understandably so. It's the only part where you can really go totally freeform on your application and allow your real self to shine through. But that's tougher said than done for a lot of applicants.
So let's take a look at how you can do it, how you can start to build your personal statement to make it unique and to make it stand out.
One of the first things that we think about with applicants is to come up with the theme of your personal statement. What is it that you want that personal statement to truly convey to an admissions committee?
Yeah, and everybody's theme is going to be unique on who they are and what they've done. The thing that you really want to highlight with your theme are essential strengths and characteristics, traits that you need to be a successful physician.
So let's put yourself in the shoes of an applicant. And let's say you're somebody who feels like they came from an underprivileged background and maybe didn't have the resources growing up that somebody else around them may have had. What are some of the themes you might want to bring out in that applicant's personal statement?
Right. So that person, may have struggled more than another applicant, may have, had to work harder, like you said, than some of your average applicants. So they may want to emphasize their perseverance for the pathway. They want to maybe talk about and emphasize a bit more of their dedication, their commitment to it, because they've potentially had to overcome more obstacles than other applicants.
What about an applicant who maybe didn't do as well in college as they wanted to, but then turned things around, or maybe has a few red flags on their application?
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of applicants like that, where it's like they've put together and they've developed themselves. And so what they maybe want to show is growth, maturity, kind of their development as a person and their character, and how they've too overcome things, but in a different type of sense.
And then maybe an applicant who went to college, has not had a tremendously hard upbringing, but really wants to give back to the community and has actually done a lot of community service, maybe done a global medical brigade, has volunteered at the local hospital and soup kitchen. How do you put that together?
Yeah, that's so great. So those sound just like their individual experiences, but really, what are those experiences showing? What is it that the applicant is demonstrating through those experiences? And all I can think about is altruism, 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 which, that's really giving back to others without having benefit for yourself. And that is a huge part of being a physician. So maybe that applicant, uses those experiences in their personal statements and really highlights their altruistic nature, their willingness to help other people, and to really go the extra mile for others, which is what being a physician is all about.
I think the key here is that as you put together your personal statement, think of it thematically. Think of the theme that you want to get across. Don't just think of it as a collection of individual experiences that you're going to write about, but how do they all meld together into your own narrative that makes you unique, that makes you who you are? That's what the personal statement is all about. It's about showing who you are to the admissions committee. And you can really do this well if you think about putting it together into a cohesive theme.
So let's take a look at an example personal statement. This is a real personal statement from somebody that applied to medical school and is now a practicing physician, and really take a look at a part of their personal statement where they're able to kind of emphasize and develop their theme. Dr. Mehta, reading this one, what do you think, or what do you gather as the theme that they're trying to establish?
I think that little excerpt really brings together, one, that this person actually had a theme in their personal statement, right? They were talking about their growth in South Asia and how that actually made them capable of becoming a better physician at the end of the day. I can imagine that they put together a few different experiences like this to talk eventually about growth as one of the central themes of their personal statement. One of the most important things about any personal statement is really the introduction.
Totally is. I mean, you really want those first couple sentences to catch a reader's eye. And the reason being is I always think of it as the admissions committee members have thousands of applications to review, and they're going to look at all of these personal statements. And if your personal statement does not stand out with those first couple of sentences, they're going to put it aside. But you don't want that to be you. You want them to read it in its entirety so that they see and understand all of those things you're trying to demonstrate to them.
I can't tell you how many personal statements I've put in the reject pile just based on the first two sentences. It's just the way it is. So as you're crafting your introduction, there's a number of different routes that you can take. But here's an example of an introduction I want you to just read and digest for a second. Dr. Marinelli, as you read that introduction, how'd you feel?
Interested. I wanted to know more about this person. I was like, wait a second, I'm not good at math. Let me try to figure out what they're trying to say here. And then these are the formulas that dominated my life for many years. What did they mean by that? What was their life? It really makes me want to read more. Let's look at another one for an example. Dr. Mehta, when you read that one, I automatically get this visual in my mind of this person running and struggling through this race. What do you think about?
That's exactly right. Like, this person has drawn me into this personal statement because I can actually picture them. I see their ankles hurting. I see the uneven trail, arm aching. Like, it actually gives me an understanding of who they are. Now, I don't know anything about them quite yet in terms of why they want to be a physician, but I do see them. I picture them. And again, as a reader, I have 1,000 personal statements that I probably have to get through. This is one that I want to keep going. I want to understand more about this person.
Absolutely. You really, really need to be drawn in to that personal statement. And remember, I mean, the personal statement is going to be about a page and a half typed. That's a lot to read, especially for physicians that are busy, that have a ton of other commitments. Besides reading personal statements on admissions committees, these people are busy. They have tons of applications to review. If it's not something that really catches their eye and their attention, like you said, they're going to put it in the reject pile.
So as you're writing your personal statement, I really want you to focus in on the introduction and think of this as perhaps the most important part of the entire statement. For some applicants, that actually might mean coming back to it at the end after writing the rest of their personal statement, and that's totally okay. Make sure to get this portion reviewed again and again by friends, family, professional advisors, so that they can say, yeah, this is a good one.
Another really important aspect of the personal statement is to show the reader your strengths. Don't just tell them your strengths. And this is really applying when you're past introduction and you're in the body paragraphs of your essay and you're talking through your various experiences.
So I hear show, don't tell all the time.
All the time.
It's maybe a cliche in personal statements, but it's really true.
It is.
The last thing I want to see on a personal statement is somebody say, I am altruistic. I am smart.
I'm going to be a good doctor because XYZ.
We really need you to show them why you have all these qualities through your own personal experiences. Let's take a look at a statement that maybe did some of this through one of their excerpts.
Patient after patient came through the free clinic that day without insurance. They had no way to pay, no way to get follow-up care, and no way to actually get the services we had recommended to them. Frustrated by the health inequities, I began coordinating with local nonprofits and medical specialty clinics in order to extend care to these underprivileged individuals.
I love this one because they're telling this experience of them at the free clinic, right? And you can understand what they saw and what they experienced, but afterwards, they really wanted to make change. And so what do I read from that? What do I take away? I see that the student has initiative, that they are motivated, that they're creative in finding solutions. These are all super great traits that they're demonstrating to me without just straight up telling me I'm innovative, I'm creative, etc.
Yeah, they've actually used their experiences as a jumping point to give you examples of what their values and their traits that they want to convey. And that's what we mean by show, don't tell. Let's look at another example to give you a better idea.
For the past year now, I have been teaching high school mathematics at a decorated international school where I live in Northwest Thailand. Here, I found myself thrown into a crash course in maturity and professionalism, working to earn the respect of students and colleagues as the youngest teacher, while balancing two other distinct roles simultaneously: ESL tutoring and residential advising.
So in this one, I think is a little bit interesting because they actually kind of threw in some qualities there like maturity and professionalism, but really they talk about how they developed those qualities, how those traits were really emphasized here. And also, I think not only did they kind of put those traits into their sentences, but you can kind of read behind the lines or read between the lines where you're actually thinking about this person demonstrating some humility, some growth, some resiliency.
I think they've put it together by actually giving us examples of what they've done and then showing us a little bit about who they are, which I think is great. So as you're writing your personal statement, just always remember, show, don't tell. Try to bring in examples of what you've actually done and use that as the jumping point to demonstrate who you are. Here's how I'd recommend actually getting started on the personal statement, which, just so you know, is about 5,300 characters for AMCAS, which is a page to a page and a half typed single spaced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of feel a lot of people really want to write a ton, but I think in a lot of ways, less is more, right? You want quality over quantity. So sticking to about a page, a little bit more than a page, I feel like that's kind of the sweet spot. But then how do you actually recommend students, take the ideas that are in their head and get them onto paper?
So we've talked about introductions, themes, as well as show, don't tell as three of the most important things in a personal statement. And I think for a student starting out, a helpful tool might be to open up a spreadsheet and write in one column your experiences and another column what you learned from them.
Mm-hmm. And then you can start to develop your thoughts on, hey, you know what? This was a really important experience for me. And maybe it was very transformative. I want to highlight this. And along with that comes these strengths, these traits that I learned from that experience. And then maybe pick 2 or 3 experiences with the corresponding traits. And then you have the kind of body of your paragraph with the body of your essay with those experiences. And then the traits are going to develop into your theme.
It's unbelievable how much better your personal statement writing goes when you take a step back yourself.
Yeah.
And think about, what is it that I've done? And actually one of the things that I recommend applicants do is actually start this spreadsheet way back in your first day of college, if not before that, and start to think about, hey, this was an experience I just had. And what did I learn from it? And then when it comes time to write the personal statement, you can go back and have this ready and pick out those themes that Dr. Marinelli was talking about.
Right. And for those of you that maybe don't think that same way too, or it's hard to be introspective sometimes. And I find that some students have a really hard time trying to highlight what's so great about themselves. Everybody can be a bit humble and sometimes you're your worst critic. So have somebody else look at the things that you've done if you're having trouble getting that on paper. Let somebody look at your resume, talk to them about, some of your experiences, and somebody looking from the outside in is going to be able to pull out those traits that we were talking about.
Another great tool that you might want to try to use is actually some of the artificial intelligence tools that are available. Now, you absolutely should not have these tools write your entire essay. That would be very easily seen by an admissions committee as plagiarism, if not worse, but you can definitely get started. They're great tools to help you brainstorm, to help you think about what it is that you bring to the table if you feed it the right information to start with. Another great place to potentially use AI tools is actually once you've completed your entire personal statement, to do a grammar check or something more in depth than that, as well as give you a second set of eyes or a third set of eyes. I wouldn't recommend using it as your only editing software, and I definitely would not recommend you ever submit a personal statement that you've only ran through artificial intelligence.
True.
You definitely need a human physician who's been on an admissions committee, most likely, to review this application before you hit submit. Because at the end of the day, medical schools aren't using a tool other than their own people to review these applications, and you want to make sure you come across as genuine and authentic in them. There's a few other mechanics that are helpful to talk about in the essays. If you're an MD PhD student, you're going to have to actually write a few additional essays, including what we call the MD PhD essay, which basically talks about why you want to pursue MD PhD, a significant research essay, which talks about what your significant research that you've done is.
If you're applying across multiple applications, so AMCAS, AO COMAS, TMD SAS, you're going to have different character lengths slightly for the personal statement. You may want to modify your personal statement just a little bit for each application. For instance, if you're applying to DO schools, you may want to put something in there specifically about your interest and your experience in osteopathy.
Another important note is that the AMCAS application is a fairly old software system, and copy pasting directly into there sometimes leads to formatting errors. So I want you to double, triple check your essay and make sure that there's none of that. You've probably typed it in Google Drive or in Word before you've pasted it in, but oftentimes little things like quotation marks, bolding, it doesn't make it over. And believe it or not, it can make your essay look like a mushmash rather than a cohesive piece.
Yeah, or I've seen just a giant paragraph because people don't put the page breaks in there. Maybe it's in your Google Doc, the page breaks, but when you paste it into AMCAS, it turns out it's just one giant paragraph, which is really difficult to actually read and digest. So make sure you're not copying, pasting, and if you are, read through it and check the formatting.
And it goes without saying, but you really want to proofread this really carefully. There's no spell checker in AMCAS or any of the other application systems, so make sure you have no typos or mistakes, and get this read over and over again by those you trust to make sure it's conveying what you want it to convey.
And on that point, start early. Don't wait until it's 3 weeks before AMCAS submission to start your personal statement. I usually have people start around 6 months beforehand, because it just takes a lot of time. It's going to take everybody different time to brainstorm those experiences and those traits. It's going to take various time to edit the drafts and go back and change things and find the content that you want that is going to really, really demonstrate who you are as a person, and then go back and forth with an editor. Don't wait until the last minute. Start early.
This is your chance to really show admissions committees who you are. Make sure you take advantage of it. Start early, get people's help. Together, you're going to make a great personal statement that's hopefully going to set you apart compared to all the other applicants who are applying.